Hi, I'm Pastor Steve. Last week, many of us came together for an annual gathering known as Prep Time. And it's a special time. It's a family time, really a family conversation that we do annually where we discuss important things we see on the horizon. We talk about a ballot of leadership, and we also think deeply about a budget that is required to provide the finances for expanding ministries like we have here at Grace Point. And while many of us packed a room, the great room we call it, here at the church to be a part of this important time, some were away or couldn't be here for various reasons. And so I wanted to include you in a rather personal matter that was presented last week. So the truth is, I've only done this one other time in my life, and that was a long time ago. And in a strange kind of way, it brings me great peace that it was so long ago that I'm really kind of unsure how to say this, which is actually quite remarkable for a preacher, right? Wouldn't you agree? So after deep discussion with my Debbie, and after much time with Jesus, the Lord of this church and the Lord of our lives, I'm announcing my plan to complete my privileged season of serving as your pastor at the end of this coming May 2024. Looking back, when we arrived in the fall of 1993, we had a heart to stay and to humbly serve here for the rest of my vocational years. You see, I had been a rancher, I guess I would call it, at a church in Southern California for 13 years where I learned a ton of stuff, a whole bunch of valuable lessons and principles that have been with me ever since leaving there. But I longed for something. I longed for the sweet and personal things of shepherding. And I wanted to shepherd, really, we were very clear in our prayer. Lord, give us a church and a people that we can shepherd throughout life's highs and lows. About that time, a church near Portland, Oregon, named Tigard First Baptist Church, invited us to come have a look. Well, we did, and we stayed. When we arrived that fall, we came with our little daughter, a toddler, Carrie Ann, and 2 months after arriving, Debbie gave birth to our wonderful son, Trevor. 2 years later, our family table, if you want to think of it that way, was full in the arrival of our spirited songbird, Carissa Lauren. So we built a house that we still live in and a life right here. And we've loved it. We still love it. In fact, we became the Mac 5 right here. You hear me talk that way a lot, the Mac 5, and I'm referring to the five of us who became a family right here. And we have laughed, and we have lived, and we've loved all of that on Luke Lane where we live, and here at Grace Point, the church we love. So, along with all those things, those are kind of broad pieces, but you know deeply one of the most, indeed the most difficult experience we've ever encountered. A storm of unprecedented size and impact as Debbie battled acute myeloid leukemia. And she didn't battle it alone. Of course, God carried us through that. But you know who he carried us alongside us during that time. It was you people. It was the people of this church who walked with us, who cared for us, who cried with us, and who were very present in a very challenging season in our lives. In short, God has given us what we prayed for long ago. A church for me to pastor and my family to be a part of for 3 decades, actually a little bit more than 3 decades. I did have a friend, I think I've mentioned him before, but a friend who over lunch one time, also a pastor, looked at me curiously and said, Steve, you're actually you're more than unusual. You're kind of a freakish anomaly to me. And I laughed, and he said, you've been at one church longer than most pastors are in 3 or 4 or 5 churches in that stretch of time. I laughed with him and chuckled since, but the truth is I've not found it an anomaly. I prefer to call it a privilege. And that's how we've looked at it this whole way. So you can know with certainty coming to this conclusion was not hurried in any way. We have operated with the belief that our being here was all in the plan of God for our lives and for Grace Point. And it was a plan that he called us to and has given us a privileged part in. And we've loved it. In fact, I'll tell you, I've been able to live out my life verses right here at Grace Point. You've heard me say it often, and you see it Sunday after Sunday, year after year, decade after decade. When I came to you, brothers, I did not come with superiority of speech or of wisdom when I proclaimed to you the testimonies of God. For I determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my preaching and my teaching were not in persuasive words of wisdom, but as a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith should not rest on the wisdom of man, this man, but on the power of God. Wonderful truth from 1 Corinthians 2 that I've lived and tried to practice every day of our time here. So, though I'm not dying anytime soon, as far as I know, I will be completing my assignment, my ministry, in late spring of this year. And Debbie and I are very resolute on this. We plan to make this season one full of memories that we plan to cherish for the rest of our lives. We want you to know Debbie and I love you.